The threats didn't come all at once. They arrived gently. That's how I knew they were real. It started with suggestions, comments framed as concern. Questions that sounded harmless but weren't. Dad, have you been feeling well lately? Have you been forgetting things? Do you feel overwhelmed? At first, I answered honestly. I said I was stressed, that everything had changed quickly, that I felt confused, not because I couldn't understand, but because no one would explain. They nodded. They wrote things down. That's when the tone shifted. Not dramatically, subtly. My son stopped asking questions and started making statements. He said he was worried about my ability to live alone. He said the stress might be affecting my judgment. He said he didn't want anything bad to happen to me. That phrase again, for your own good. I had heard it before. Now it sounded different. One afternoon, he mentioned alternatives. Places where people like me were looked after, places where meals were scheduled, where medication was monitored, where decisions were made safely. He didn't call it a nursing home at first. He called it support. I laughed because it felt absurd. I was still cooking my own meals, still walking every morning, still thinking clearly, but he didn't laugh. He said we should be prepared. Prepared. For what? He said the lawyer had raised concerns. That phrase made my stomach tighten. Concerns about what? He said about my emotional state, about my reactions, about my resistance. Resistance, that word revealed everything. I wasn't confused. I was inconvenient. That night, I barely slept. I replayed every conversation in my head, wondering when concern had turned into strategy. I realized something terrifying. The same document that allowed him to sell my house also allowed him to decide where I lived. The power of attorney didn't end at money. It extended to care, placement, control. I tried to push back. I said I wasn't going anywhere. He didn't argue. He said, let's see what the doctor says. The next appointment wasn't with my regular physician. It was with someone new, someone who asked different questions. Questions that weren't about my health, but about my compliance. Did I feel angry? Did I feel paranoid? Did I feel like people were against me? I answered carefully. I realized then that every word mattered. That emotion could be recorded as instability. That fear could be framed as confusion. When I hesitated, the doctor made a note. When I defended myself, another note. I felt like I was being measured against a standard I hadn't agreed to. After the appointment, my son drove. He didn't ask where I wanted to go. He said he'd take care of it. That's when I understood the real threat. They didn't need force, they had documentation, they had authority, and they had patience. The idea of being placed somewhere quietly, legally, terrified me more than losing my house, because that would erase not just my property, but my voice. I began to limit what I said, not because I agreed, but because disagreement had become dangerous. Silence felt safer, but silence also felt like disappearing. I started writing things down, dates, conversations, exact words. I didn't know who would read them. I just knew someone had to. Because if this continued, I wouldn't be able to explain later. One morning, my son mentioned paperwork again. More forms, more signatures. That's when I refused. Not loudly, firmly. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, Dad, you're complicating things more than necessary. That sentence chilled me, because it wasn't about me anymore. It was about efficiency, about finishing something. I realized then that I wasn't fighting a person. I was fighting a process designed to move forward without consent. And processes don't feel guilt. That night, I sat alone and understood something critical. If no one intervened, the next decision wouldn't be mine. And once you're labeled incapable, it's almost impossible to remove that label. I needed someone outside the circle. Someone who could see what was happening. Someone who wasn't part of the paperwork. I just didn't know yet that someone was already watching. If you think stories like this should be told, you can support the channel by liking this video. If you want to keep watching, subscribe to the channel. A new episode every day. Cool doesn't always mean fair.